Hi,
Turn off the
everyone.
TV.
Welcome to the Market Manager Learning Lunch. I am Allison, the Communications Administrator for the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. And today our theme is what's working and what's not working at market. So I would say let's go around and we can introduce ourselves, tell us what market you're from, and maybe, one or two things that you'd like to discuss today. So I will throw it to Jackie because she is to my left. Jackie, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
You're muted.
Yeah, I got it. My name is Jackie Rossignol, and I have a lighting problem here. And I'm actually not the market manager. I volunteered to run the EBT Double Up Bucks debit WIC senior program. So we have an interim market manager, so I kind of step in for these kinds of things. So I'm in Rama, which is about 50 miles south of Gallup, and we're pretty small right now. We got pretty disrupted by the COVID for political reasons. I don't know how else to say it, but it's slowly coming back. And I came in today mostly to hear what's going on at the other markets. I would say the main problem, what's not happening at the market is a phone signal, which is really messing me up trying to do the EBT. And EBT is not a problem because I can go find one later after doing the paperwork, but we rely on debit quite a bit. Customers really like using their debit cards, and when you don't have a signal. But Veronica tells me that they're going to send me a hotspot. I don't know exactly what that means, but actually, if someone could fill me in on how that works, it's really just the WIC program. But I'm a little, I've never had to deal with a smartphone before, so I'm still working on that. So that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Pam, Carol, I'll meet you.
I thought I unmuted that. Sorry about that. Who's your carrier provider for your phone? Or
Are you talking to me? Yeah, the evil Verizon company. And the reason for that is we have two outlets. We have a market and we have a food circle. And I had to do all this experimenting to work out what was the most likely signal to work at both locations. And that turned out to be Verizon. And it worked fine for a while, and then it just kind of stopped.
Call Verizon up and ask them to test the signal. Sometimes they can, do something to make it more effective. But I don't know that if you get a hotspot and it's still with Verizon, whether that will boost it or not.
Yeah, this is the big experiment.
Good luck.
And really and truly, it's like it's really about the EBT, and because I can fill out the papers and then go find a signal, and that's been going okay. It's just very disappointed. The other thing is this whole WIC thing with farmers using their own phones. Oh brother, I don't know, because if you're on T-Mobile, you don't get a signal at the market. So I don't know if the hotspot only works with one carrier. Does so
it's funny, we have a renter here and he brought a pole and he's doing work from my casita, which has maybe 5 to 20 megabytes, but he's installed a pole. I will ask him about it and see if I can find out what he's doing, and I'll talk. It's a portable pole that he's traveling around, staying month to month places and then working out of there. So, because I told my husband, I said, well, you better talk to him because maybe we need a pole. So I'll check Jackie and see if that's something that might work.
So should I put my email in the chat or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Aw, David's got a doggy. Love when we have our pet guests on these things. Pam, did you want to go next?
I can. My situation is it's dramatic. We're doing really great. I mean, you know, we're only up to about 13 to 15 vendors. On average, we have 10, but we're getting 300 to 350 people on Saturdays, which for a town of 8,500, I think is pretty good. We're blessed that there's a lot of here in Socorro, I guess a lot of people who went to tech who have those mathematical minds. So we have lots of musicians, and we've had music every Saturday. These guys have been coming, all these different musicians, and playing. We only go 9 to 11. I'd like to extend the market and go an hour later, but I don't know. We'll see how the produce is coming in. But so all that's going great. But we have some drama queens, and unfortunately one of them was on the board. She resigned, and then the other one resigned, and then we have a problem vendor who keeps he has a huge truck, and he parks his truck. We're on a plaza, so it's a big square, and he keeps parking his truck there, and then if anybody's in his way, he has a conniption, like he's sort of privileged or something. He claims he has an assigned parking, but we went back and went through all their agreements with the city and everything, and there is none. We did write him a letter, and we're going to present it to him and just tell him, listen, you know, vendors are complaining, clients are complaining. They want to know why you think you're special and you get to have a assigned spot when nobody else does. And we're telling you, as from here on out, you have to unload like everybody else and park your big truck somewhere else. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any other better way to handle that.
You have my complete sympathy. I'm dealing, we have a toxic vendor. I won't go into the details, but
Right.
it's like, what I get is, well, you're not the market manager because you resigned. And it was like, and the interim market manager is the interim market manager. She's holding the fort. And it's like,
Right.
so, my advice to you is if there is an official market manager, I actually been thinking about this.
We don't have a market manager. We have a board. So we actually we had 6 people on the board. One fellow became ill who had been with us forever, and unfortunately we don't have his input. But we have a fellow that's been there for over 10 years, and a lady who has got a lot of experience in retail and stuff like that, and myself, who, I mean, who knew a market could be so complicated?
Well, you know, I mean, I decided to tell this toxic vendor, you might think about this, is that our market rules, we have, I mean, it's a small market, but we have 3 pages of market rules, and the market opened in 1997.
Wow.
And it's like, what I'm going to try is to say, well, look, here are the market rules. I know you're aware of these. And that we did this as a group. I'm not a tyrant. It's not me. The original market manager came up, you know, with these rules. Right. It's not something I made up a year ago.
And did they sign an agreement to adhere to those rules?
No, we never felt we had to do that.
Yeah, well, it's a good reason to do that.
But, you know, in 1997, this is the first time.
Right. And we had 3 of them. 3 toxic people.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a trend in this day and age that people just feel like they can act obnoxious and rude and get away with it.
Yeah.
So
you have vendors.
I was curious if other people were having that problem.
Okay, so you have your vendors sign an agreement about the rules.
We do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe the time has come.
But I still feel like even though we give them that letter, they're still going to say, we don't care. We're going to do whatever we want. So, you know, it's just.
Well,
I mean, hopefully
I'm prepared to kick out this vendor, and he's a major vendor, and that's why people are kowtowing, because he's a big vendor. But in the past, I mean, he's not. You can't have a market depend on one vendor, so you should be able to.
I'm just curious, what is he doing that's toxic?
Refuses to follow our opening. We have a 10 o'clock rule. We have customers that drive 50 miles to come to the market. So when we say it opens at 10, they assume that that's what that means. It's funny, the last time we had a problem with this was in 1997. And that's the first rule is, and it makes it chaotic. We got customers now showing up at 9:30 in a panic about getting produce because
Right.
there's no firm opening time. And it
And
sounds,
he just won't sit down. He won't sit down and talk reasonably about it.
well, no, there's no one, we did food circles, okay? And those food circles had like no rules. And I think he really liked the idea of there being no organization, there not being a market. It would just be people showing up on this spot and selling. And I think he would just
Right.
as soon get rid of the market completely. And I realized that a couple new
Do they
vendors.
pay a fee?
What's that?
Do they pay a fee?
Yes. And he pays his fee. I don't know why. It seems like he could just refuse to pay the fee. But I like your idea about if we had him sign off on the rules, then you'd have some kind of leverage. So maybe we have
And
to
you
start
could get
doing that.
everybody to do that. I'll send you a copy of ours. It's pretty brief and simple. It's not as complicated as some, but
Yeah.
it also has you have to treat the other vendors with respect and blah blah blah. And
Which
then we
is
also
my
have
point. Yeah.
that if you break the rules, we're going to send you a warning letter, and if we have to send a second one, then you're out of the market for the season. So we're going to try that route. But it's just, I couldn't believe that people would act like that. It's been going on. I've let it go on for way too long. And so we have to nip it in the bud. I mean, he's calling the cops on this lady who's been there for 10 years because she's unloading in his privileged space, which the other girl that resigned had made this agreement with him and went around the board. Like, we can't find any paperwork on it. She's resigned. The whole thing is just crazy, but I was curious. So I guess people just, I don't know, are any of you others having any problem with any bullies or toxic vendors or clients or anything? You're muted, David. David, you're muted.
There we go. At my market, no, I don't have any issues with any of my vendors.
Yeah, that's great.
I wish it would probably make the job a little bit more exciting.
No, it doesn't.
It does not.
No, I know. But I do hold all my vendors to the rules and regulations that they have to sign when they sign up as a vendor. And I make them re-sign that agreement every year. Every year they have to re-sign that agreement. And if they don't, they're not approved to attend the market until I get a signed copy again. Because I hold them to it.
Right.
And my thing is, I just tell them, I'm like, you know what, we're all adults here, so you know what you need to do. You read it, you signed it, do it. Kind of what I do.
Virginia put in the chat a request for Pam if you could send us your market rules or something like that. It would be interesting to see, everybody's different rules. I know Silver City has some really good ones, but that could be a workshop for like newer market managers, how to write these rules, how to stick to them. So if you want to send a copy to me or throw it in the chat, that would be awesome, and I can disperse it.
Yeah, I might have to give it to you because I have to go into my Google Drive and I can't really do it while I'm doing the Zoom.
Sure.
I mean, maybe I can, but I don't know how.
That's okay. Yeah, one thing at a time, right?
Right. But I will send them to you, Allison.
Okay, that sounds great.
They're very basic. We're going to upgrade them for the fall season.
And I guess that is a good question for those of you that have it. How often do you update your rules? And I like, the annual sign it again. That's a really good idea, David.
Mm-hmm. I update mine. I don't know if I'm still on mute.
No,
but I update mine every year. It's updated because if things were kind of not working or did work really well the year before, then I incorporate them. If they're not already incorporated to the rules and regulations, I incorporate them at that point to make them the law of the land, basically. So, yeah.
And David, where are you from again? I missed it earlier
I'm
on.
at the Artavinos Desert Crossing Farmers Market in Sunland Park, New Mexico. We're an unusual market because we're on private property. And we're a privately owned market, I guess you could say, but open to the public, of course.
And obviously near the Texas border.
We're right, and that's my big issue with the market is that because we're so close to El Paso, in the state of Texas, they don't have any laws or regulations pertaining to farmers markets. So anybody can start a market and call it a farmers market. It could be 99% crafts and it can still be called a farmers market. And so a lot of the issues I have with maintaining and holding on to my vendors is we don't have the visibility because we're not off a major street. We're kind of hidden. And so I have a lot of vendors that they want to be at those bigger markets, and I get it. They get more business, but I don't consider them a true farmer's market. So, and there's a lot of competition right now with us in El Paso with other markets that are happening. Tons. So.
David, did you have any other topics that you wanted to bring up?
Well, how do you all who have been at your markets for a long time, how do you maintain and keep your vendors happy that they keep coming back and that they want to just be at your market? What's the best things that you do for them?
We try and have a monthly event. It doesn't happen every month, but we do a special monthly event that we advertise. Mm-hmm. Like we just had a summertime family fun day. And I mean, it was, we just advertised. We had some kid games. We had a sprinkler and some water guns and the music. I think that's working real well. And luckily,
do you have a budget for the music?
No, they do tips, and then I encourage all the vendors to give them $3 to $5. They weren't doing that. It's like, what are you doing?
I like that idea, so actually.
At least they're making, $50 to $80 or something. And, for 2 hours, that's not too bad. They're happy because they want to play.
Correct.
But I think we're going to we're going to do a special event in October. One of the farmers has a big sunflower field, and I've been thinking about it since last year, and we're right in the midst of making sure we can go ahead and get this done. And we're just going to turn it into a sunflower maze, and we're going to and run that in October and take the proceeds from that, probably like Saturday afternoons and Sundays, and then earmark that for musicians to pay them so that we can continue to get good music.
Yeah, I try to do an event. The owners because we're privately owned, like I mentioned, and so we're on a restaurant that's been around for 25 years. It's a restaurant and banquet event facilities, but 22 years ago they started the farmers market, and the owner is very big on events. He always wants something happening at the market, so I always try to do an event, at least 2 big events a month. Like I'm starting. The last Saturday of every month is becoming Pet Adoption Day at the market. So I'm getting local adoption pet agencies to come out every last Saturday to get those pets adopted. And that's working well. I mean, I do a paint studio about once a month, plein air paint studio. But I'm curious to know how many of you are competing with other markets in your area. Do a lot of you have competition with markets or no?
If we do, they're an hour away.
Okay, so they are a distance away. People got to travel. See, and that's another issue. They're right next door.
So is Carol still on? Because with the Gallup market, because I think Carol maybe considers formally, I don't know what's happening now, but the Rama market was, probably Carol's competition, because we get people from Gallup and I go, do you go to the Gallup market? And they go, no. So they're driving 50 miles. And
wow.
But to address This is back in the day,
There's a
okay?
reason
But
for that, though.
what's that again?
There's a reason for that as far as when you're in Gallup. I don't live in Gallup personally, but Gallup has its quirks, shall we say. And some people don't want to come to downtown Gallup on a Saturday for a lot of different reasons. And they like the change of scenery. Jackie's got a beautiful market down there. She's trying not to coordinate it, but I know you still are. If you guys hadn't shortened your hours, I'd still try to get down there for the tail end, because I love farmers markets, and that's why I do this. But the thing is, we don't have a solid farm community here. So it's very much backyard growers and things like that. And so I don't have the issue of vendors who will jump ship, because either they're coming to our market, they're going to Grants, they're going down to Rima, or they're going to the flea markets, So it's a very different situation here. It's not really comparable, but I don't have, there's only one vendor that would say he's been part of the market for the whole time. I've been doing this since 2006. So the market's been here, but it wasn't started by growers. It wasn't started by farmers, because we don't have it. It was started by an OBGYN. We thought that Gallup should have a market. So we have one because I think, it's a good thing to have, but it's not like every market has its own personality. And so we're super small right now. I've got 5 produce vendors and then a bakery person and a couple of craftspeople. So, it's a really different deal. But George probably has more to say about competition in bigger markets, because he's in a bigger market area. So Jack, I don't think of you as competition in a bad way. I think it's great. It's all good.
Now, Jackie, Are you on that road that's like between Gallup and Silver City? Along that path?
That sounds like Fence Lake Road. We're located between Zuni and the Raymond Navajo chapter on 53. And I do have one thing. You were talking about, how do you hang on to vendors?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way it would go down in Rama is I don't have to go to a farmer's market, because I can just set up on the side of the road and sell.
Okay.
And we have a thing called the community table. Okay. And when I was incredibly active with the market, I used to drive to people's houses and pick up their produce and bring it to the market. And the advantage, and I have done it more recently than that. But so what you do is you persuade. My favorite story is so the community table is, you can just bring a turnip and put it on the community table, okay? But some people actually had a fair amount of produce, and I would persuade them. I would say, just bring your produce, put it on the table, and I will sell it for you. And of course, people like that idea. And then I remember, somewhere around $30, they get hooked on the idea of coming to the market. And, the money and then because one of the vendors, it was, they came by before the end of the market, and I paid them out $60. And I said, do you have any more lettuce? And I remember their eyes were popping out of their head over this $60, because they weren't doing anything like that on the side of the road. And so you just clearly demonstrate. So we have, our vendors are there for the money. It's definitely, and a lot of them are homesteaders that their main priority is feeding themselves. But boy, any kind of cash income when you're running a homestead is big. So I don't know, what kind of vendors you have, but the other vendors are just people that, I have a lady in Rama. I call her up. I said, can you call around? And like I said, Rama's a Mormon community. I'm not Mormon. So you get a Mormon to call the other Mormons, and then say, hey, the market needs your help. Could you just bring over whatever you got this week? And then the more variety of produce you have, that lifts your customer base.
Yeah, I've
So
seen
there's
it.
a
I've seen that happen. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
so there's kind of a critical mass of customers you have to have for it to be worthwhile for a gardener or farmer. The big difference between now and 97 is we now have some very serious homesteaders who now have like extra produce. I'm the only grower who sells to the La Montanita and Gallup. I mean, that's 50 miles away. I'm their local producer. Okay. So we don't have a lot of, I mean, it's so totally different on the corridor.
Yeah.
Those backyard gardeners, don't despise them. They're extremely important. And if you can put all the backyard stuff together on one table that has this huge variety, then people start coming. And then the more people, it's a hard sell to the vendors to say, the more vendors you have, the more customers you have, the more customers you have, the more you're going to sell. They see themselves as being in competition with other vendors, which is really sad because it's actually the other way around. If you want to do well, you want to be in a bustling market with a lot of variety. So
Yeah,
we
and
like we want our crafts people, we want our baked goods people,
Yeah.
all that stuff generates. So, but I just found that the way to keep a vendor is have them do well at the market.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know if that helps or not, but
I always tell them that they're going to do well if they're consistent with their attendance. They cannot come once and determine, okay, well, I didn't do well, I'm not coming again. You have to be consistent. Because I've noticed with our market, we don't, so like I was saying, there's tons of other markets that people go to because they see it as they're driving by and they go, hey, something's happening, look, there's tents, let's stop. We don't have that privilege, I guess, that, of visibility, off-road visibility. So I always tell them that it's people that come weekly, and once they get to know you and you're consistent, you're there, you're going to do well, but it's consistency.
Yeah. So do you have signage? Because we're not on the main road either.
We do have signage, but it's signage that we have to put out and then take away at the end of the market because we can't leave it there permanently.
So that might be worth it.
The city won't let us because it's not our property where the signage goes. It's some other person's property, and we're just kind of taking up a corner real quick.
Yeah, but we have big, heavy signs that we have to put out and take up again. But I think they're definitely worth it if you can get a volunteer who's willing to handle that.
No, I have a volunteer who does it, but sometimes I wonder what else can I be doing? What I'm sure there's something that I should be doing that I'm not doing.
So David, I have a question for you. George, I want to ask David a question, and then I'll hand it over to you. So David, why do you think people leave for the El Paso markets, or what's the reason? Yeah, why are they leaving?
They're not leaving. Once they come and they're consistent with their attendance, they realize that it's a good market, and then they stay. Then they become regulars. It's getting those ones that sign up for the first time and come once or twice. I'm having a hard time getting them back, getting them to come again. And it's like I try everything, communication. I call them, I talk to them. Whenever I have a first-time vendor, I always try to call them 1 to 2 days after the market so I can have a one-on-one chat with them about what their thoughts were on the market. How did they do? What do they think we can do better? And so forth, because I want to get their opinion. And then I try to get a promise from them that they're going to return. And more likely than not, they don't. Sometimes they don't. Very few of them actually will go, okay, I'm going to come back, and then they come back. So it's just, and my other vendors are really good about talking up the market, because all my vendors love the market. Like I was mentioning before, I have some vendors who have been with the market since it started. I mean, my oldest one, market started 22 years ago, actually. My oldest vendor is 21 years. She's been doing this every Saturday for 21 years.
So David, I have a question. When you touch base with these folks that don't come back, do they tell you why they don't want to come back?
Their complaint is that there's not enough people. they want to, at these other markets, there's always crowds of people because again, there's crowds and they don't see those crowds there. And so it's, which I find kind of weird because I'm always like, but our people buy. I know our people buy. Excuse me?
They feel like it's affecting their sales. Is that what they're
They
saying?
do,
Really?
they do. But if they would just give it some time, because my vendors who started out with that attitude, but I would tell them it's consistency when they would come back, they now average $400 to $500 every market. With what they sell. And so they realize it's money. But it's
do you feel like that some of these other newbies don't have enough variety to sell and then therefore it's limiting their sales?
It could be. It could be. And maybe they're telling me things or they have issues with their own product that they think it's not good enough comparatively to others. Maybe that's not why they're not returning. I wish they would tell me that, but of course they're not going to. But it's one of my issues that I'm having, and I just want everybody to get along, and I want my market full.
Yeah. George, what did you have to say? I know, so you have, it's Bosque Farms and Los Lunas, right? Those are your markets. So you're competing with the bigger Albuquerque markets.
Very much so. One of the things that happens at the Saturday market, which is in the same time as the Albuquerque market, we have a lot of people coming to our market, even from Albuquerque. They prefer our market because it's a much quieter, doesn't have the hordes of people pushing and shoving to get to their booth.
And that's what people like. That's what my regulars who come to the market, that's what they like about my market as well.
One of the things that I've always told our vendors when they say, can I sell at your market? I ask them, what do you have to sell? Because number one, I'd like to make sure that they are a produce vendor. I do have craft and bakery goods as well, but that produce vendor is the most important thing. That way we can maintain our status as a farmer's market. Two, if they have produce that they're proud of to bring to market to sell, are they willing to stick it out for 1 to 2 weeks after the first time? If they are, I'll tell them great. If they're not, I'll tell them why. The number one reason that people do not return to a market that I have found is the fact that most shoppers will go by their stand. Even if they have a little bit of signage out there, they will look at their produce. See, that's nice looking produce. Maybe they'll get a couple of buyers, but maybe they won't. Maybe the old timers that are there have pretty much the same type stuff. So they will go to that other one, but that shopper has it in the back of their mind. This guy, I think maybe I'll try him. So if they're there 2 or 3 times before they give up, then they have a fighting chance of selling more. That's one of the things that I have always found to be true. And I will tell that vendor, I said, you stick it out for 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that you do have a customer base that looks for you, not at you.
It's consistency. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was muted. Virginia or Carol, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation, or do you have new things you want to bring up?
I just want to mention, since Jackie started off talking about the WIC stuff, so where our market is located, we're now in a new location. So as far as what's working this year, I think we finally found a location that is really flexible and family friendly and everything else. So I like that. But the funny thing about Gallup is that in theory, we should have good reception. In reality, that's not always the case. So sometimes I do have to take my machine and stand out with one leg up and, praying to the gods and all that whole thing. And, I'm right there. And I think sometimes some of these city buildings might have some kind of, in the federal buildings and stuff like that, like little firewalls or weird things going on that prevent our reception. But Veronica did just send me the hotspot, and I'm new to this too, Jackie. And like, I've never used a hotspot. I've made my phone a hotspot before, but this is a separate thing. So the little unit is pretty straightforward. She's already got it programmed to behave. So you turn it on, and then she also sent me a tablet, which I need to get a case for. But I still have vendors with flip phones, even with my tiny number of people. Nobody's tech savvy except one person. And then there's another one who could be, but just doesn't have the time. So the thought is that with this tablet, we're not getting people breaking down the doors with the new system for WIC and seniors. So I think we'll have time to learn how to do this in a good way, but people can log in and out of the app to make a sale with the tablet. So this is going to be our learning curve of how this works. And right now we have one vendor who's trained into that WIC system, who was already trained because he started out, he starts his season over in Grants and then comes, once we get started, he comes to ours. He's had 4 transactions. So,
I'm not expecting a big surge either. I just I want to be able to offer it. Could you put your phone number in the chat?
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe we can help each other.
It's been pretty simple so far. So
yeah, but give me your phone number and then maybe we can help each other out. Yeah. And standing on one leg and holding it up in the air, does that work? Like when to get a signal?
Surprisingly, it does, because that new EBT machine has been fussy. So it'll work great, and then it'll decide that it's not gonna connect anymore. And so it actually has worked. I've had to do that at every location we've been in here. We've been in 3 different spots, and it doesn't matter. It's still a. I think you have to be nice to it too. Talk nice.
George, I think you had your hand raised, but go ahead.
Thank you. Our WIC, the WIC program at our markets is not what you would call user or friendly. It could work. We do have a couple of vendors that accept WIC. We have some beautiful produce vendors. The vendors are beautiful too, but they actually have some fabulous produce that they could sell, but because of their religion or their senior moment type stuff, they're old. They do not understand or operate anything, even if a tablet was sent to my market. I was told by Veronica several months back that I would be more than happy. The market, I personally would buy a tablet to have set up at the market. She says, oh no, you can't do that because each vendor has to have their own identification. I said, well, that could be possible. She says, no, you can't do that. So I'm stuck without it. I'm sorry, Carol, but that's.
No, I know, George. So that's the thing. And I think we need to advocate at a larger level on this. To me, just like Jackie's talking about the community table, I think as market coordinators, as market managers, we know our vendors, we know who's legit, we know what they're doing. We should be able to take payments and then we pay them out, and that there's a farmer's market agreement that we have the integrity and we're behaving themselves. This should be some flexibility that we have, because otherwise, how do you have a community table if you have no way to? You're limiting people's options and your customers' options if you say, okay, well, you can buy from these people, but you can't buy from this community table. That undermines the whole concept of what this is supposed to be about.
this is quite true. WIC at my markets, on Tuesday market, week before last, I had this lady come to my table that had a WIC card. She says, those people told me to come back here and that you could help me out. And I says, I'm sorry, a WIC tablet or a WIC card, I cannot do anything with. And I tried to explain to her in Spanish as well as in English. She was not understanding why I couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
they tell her at their offices or wherever the WIC office is anymore, that just take it to a vendor over there and they'll help you out. Well, the program is losing big time because at my market anyway, because there are three vendors at the Los Lunas market and 2 vendors at the Bosque Farms market out of say 22 at Los Lunas and out of 18 at the Bosque Farms market that sell produce. We have a majority of people that are unwilling to have a flip phone. 2, they are unable to comprehend the use of their flip phone. There are several of them that have a flip phone or a Android, but they don't even know how to set up their voicemail. It's a situation whereby senior citizens that have not been able to take any kind of initiative to go and learn a little bit about what an Android is or an iPhone or even a computer, that I'm ignorant. I really am. I'll tell you right now, I'm ignorant about a lot of programs. I can get online. I can get on Zoom. I do have a smartphone. I am just one of those individuals that have tried to learn as much as I can. But I cannot force other people to learn because that's just not my job. I've got enough to do getting ready for markets. I've got enough to do going and inspecting my farmers' growing areas. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you do something like get a Verizon or an Apple person to come do a little mini seminar at the market? Why not?
I don't think that they'd be willing to come down other than to sell their product.
That's right.
Well, it would be a good opportunity for them to sell their product if they could come down and show people how easy it is to do it. And I mean, I don't know, maybe nobody would show up, nobody want to do it, but I think these people are missing out on a ton of money, the vendors.
Well,
we don't sell that much, but I'm making an extra $100 a week easily off of the WIC and the double up and all that stuff.
Well, double up is an easy process because it's coinage that comes from me. The WIC, there are not that many WIC participants that come to our market for some reason or another. The Los Lunas market has maybe 3 or 4 people that come, and I tell them which vendors they can go to use their card. I also tell them to make sure that the vendor has that plaque, which looks just like their card, at their booth so that they can understand what's going on. There are those others that they said, no, we are not going to do that because that is not, we don't work the internet, we don't do anything like that. I said, what if I got a tablet so that you could use, you can come to me, punch in your numbers, and it says, they tell me that I would be more than happy to do that, but I am not going to walk all the way down to your table so that you can hand me a tablet so that I can go back and sell them a piece of lettuce or celery or whatever it is that you're selling. They just aren't going to do it.
So it raises a question, Why didn't they just go, I mean, I need another token, like I needed a hole in the head, but why didn't they just use the token system? It's kind of tried and true, and everybody seems to be happy with it. Because we have
the token system is a fine thing. But right at the present time, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tokens that I'm dealing with and 1 coupon that I'm dealing with. That's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of paperwork to handle. You add another token in there for a WIC program. Number one, it has to be something completely off grid that the people would understand. You would have to have something that is not just like the other tokens that we have. You have the same size token for the Fresh RX. You have the same size token for the EBT unit, and then there is my debit card token, which is the same size token altogether. I, as a market, do not have the physical and or a monetary solution for that. We could make something completely different in a different size, but my market cannot support the way it was, what it would take in order to design and have another token. Larger markets do. I believe it's the Rail Yards that has this fancy debit card coin, and it's detectable. The Fresh RX coin, you have a purple or a brilliant pink edge that I put on it so that you could tell the difference between the Snap coin and the EBT coin, and or from the other debit card coin I have. It's a token nightmare. It really is. There is nothing else that I can do to, as a nonprofit market, I don't have the funds to design the things that it would take to make these different and yet convenient for everybody to handle. I'd be more than willing to pay them out at the end of the market day. That's not a problem. I do that with everything else. So one more payout, just add another line to the payout sheet. That's it. But my market can't support the design, is what it is.
I get that, George, about all the tokens. And so the way I went at it is I don't do anything else for the market but handle the tokens. And what I dread, though, is WIC. There are some WIC people around. They're waiting for their cards, and the day's going to come that they're going to show up, and I won't be able to run their card because they don't have a smartphone or we don't have it. And I just, which is worse, having another line of tokens or, telling them, I'm sorry, we have this huge program. We've been advertising like crazy, but you can't participate because fill in the blank. And it would be, so I guess at Santa Fe Market, that thing where the smartphones talk to each other, I guess that works really well. Or maybe we just need all the market managers to get together and talk about, so how was WIC working?
I have talked to Veronica numerous occasions, and when we held a meeting, our pre-season meeting for all of our vendors, I have invited all of the vendors that were either produce vendors or vendors that could accept the EBT coins. She came to that meeting and she did her presentation. At that presentation, she told all the vendors and myself that at the first market for the first month, they would have support at each of the markets that we have in New Mexico. So she told me just about a month ago that that support fell through because the powers to be above her decided that they would not fund the temp agency's request, or the request at the temp agency for all these people that were going to be savvy to help all of our vendors at each one of our markets. She says it's just not going to happen. So I think that she's been going as much as she can to various markets. But hey,
Yeah.
there's just so much she can do without the support of the upper echelon in her departments. I put this all square on the shoulders of her director.
I agree.
She's not to blame. She is doing the best she can, but
Not at all.
she has no support on her side, in my opinion. And I will continue to preach, as it may be, for the better or betterment of having people learn the system. There is not any way that a person can teach somebody that is not willing to learn. There is not any way to teach somebody that does not have a smartphone, because the system is all in smartphone technology. There is ways that it can be handled, but there are a lot of people that will not do it and work at it. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it because I see no other way of doing it. It might be working just great at Santa Fe, where all the big wigs are located, but as far as the smaller market areas and the places that have people with religion that prevents them from using the internet, or even people that are incapable of understanding technology as it is now and today's technology, there's always something new coming out every day.
Hey, George, I used to work for the U.S. Census Bureau, and I've never encountered a religion that didn't want you using the internet. Can you kind of fill me in? What religion are we talking about?
We have a large contingency of Mennonite in this area.
Okay.
They cannot go against their religious beliefs. And the one lady that visits, well, there's two that visit our market in Los Unos, have some of the most beautiful produce on the face of the earth. It is really good. They'd be more than happy to take your cash, or they come in and they cash out their coins at the end of the market day. It's a check that goes out to them. They're good. And they know how to grow, but they do not embrace technology.
Right. That someone should have calculated that in.
Yeah, it's really great to hear all the feedback about how this process has and hasn't worked. And I hope it'll help WIC going forward, knowing what they can do to support you guys, and your vendors. We're just at about time. So if there's any last thoughts on the WIC stuff, I would say let's do it now. And then I also want to make sure that Virginia, you get to present what you wanted to bring up. So any last thoughts on the WIC stuff? EBT, debit, from anybody? David, go ahead. Jackie. Oh, David, you're muted still.
There we go. With the WIC stuff, has everybody received their signage? Because I have not received any signage that they said that they were gonna, Veronica said she was gonna send. I haven't received anything, and I was just wondering if anybody else has.
I have signage, but I really bugged her about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
I guess that's
haven't.
what I gotta do. Okay, because yeah, I haven't received anything, neither have my vendors that, you know, I have three vendors that are new to the program this year. And they haven't gotten anything either yet. So just wondering.
She has been out this last week.
Okay,
And so she was unavoidable to get anything, or not able to get anything out. Like I said, she does a fabulous job for what she's got the authority to do. And so get with her, ask her to, you know, she's got so many irons in the fire. Just call her or text
Okay.
her.
I will do that. Thank you.
These are all,
Market managers.
not one of them is associated with something in their village, like museum or some historical something. Every one of them's complaints that I heard.
Well,
Jackie, go
We
ahead.
don't complain, we discuss.
I was just gonna say that I think we need one of these lunch things
Mhm.
just on WIC.
Yes, that's definitely on my
Yeah.
my docket. I hope we can do that later in the year, maybe when things slow down and when Veronica has time. So yeah, duly noted. Okay, Virginia, it's all you.
Well, I think I have a lot of questions that are not urgent, that can wait. But I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been doing this for a while, because I'm a new market manager and I always learn a lot from listening to everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, Carol had a great suggestion that we should do a part 2 of this. Would you guys be in favor for coming back maybe the second or first week in September with the same topic?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds good.
I'll go ahead and stop the recording, but thank you all for joining me today. And yes, another successful lunch.